Today is Monday, May 12th, 2025. The MPO Technical Advisory Committee meeting is called to order. Do we have anyone joining virtually?
Yes, if you
Guys, it's Elma. Good morning.
And Chris Dianantis from MCAT.
Right, good morning. And can we confirm that we have a quorum?
Yeah.
Excellent. Now let us all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now open the meeting for public comment, including comments on any agenda items. On the screen, you can see 3 ways for the public to provide input to the TAC, and all comments received will be shared with the committee members and made a part of the public record. Staff, have any public comment cards been received?
Yeah.
Okay. We have no public comment received. So we will move along. All right, it's now time for agenda item number 4, which is the approval of minutes for March 10th for the Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting? All right, motion by Megan. Thank you. Do I have a second? Second by Paula. Wait, discussion?
And there needs to be a correction.
Okay.
There was something that was attributed to me and it was actually Pam Barr. On page 3, under once around the table, it was Pam that reminded us that about the projects in monies being pulled. Yes, okay.
All right, any further discussion? All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended? All right, motion to approve the amended minutes, again made by Megan. Do we have a second?
Now a second.
Oh, and Paula will second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Action items are next on our agenda, and we will start with item 5A, fiscal year 2025, 2026 through 2029, 2030 Transportation Improvement Program. Ryan Brown with the MPO will present this item.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning, everyone. We're back with our annual update of the Transportation Improvement Program. As usual, we went through the document, updated any and all previous scoring criteria, performance management mandates. So a lot of our safety stuff, mobility was updated with today's information. Also received the download from Pam and FDOT back in early April. That was sent out to you for review and comment. That was incorporated into this document. We also opened it up to the 30-day public comment period, and will be done by the time that we report. So we've received a number of comments. Those will be incorporated in the document. Be sure to pass those along to the department, which I think related to project management or any other issues that we see. So with that, I'm happy to take any comments on the document that's been attached. It should be linked in the cover sheet for you. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes.
So, I did not see the Circus Boulevard project with the additional funding in the new TIP. And I did not see the project in the current TIP with the additional funding. So I was wondering where the additional funding was going in. Is it going in the new TIP or in the TIP amendments in the current TIP?
The new tip right now. Yeah, so that'll be active. So the money was moved preliminarily before work programs reopened in July.
So we open in July. So
Correct.
it's in there. The second amount is in the first for the Sun Trail
Yes,
is already in there for the gaming purposes for going into 26. The next is, we still have a couple kinks to work out, but there will be an amendment that will go on to 26.
yeah, so once the work program reopened.
Okay, because from what I remember, it was supposed to be effective July first, the additional money. And we were counting on that to do the design build, which $550,000 doesn't do the design build.
Yeah, so once it's available, we'll certainly make it happen and we'll bring it to them back
Okay,
at that possible. Yep,
all right, just want to put it on the record.
sure.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to recommend MPO board adoption of the fiscal year 2025/2026 through 2029/2030 transportation improvement program, including any comments received. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, motion by Clark Davis. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Alby. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, indicate by saying nay. All right, the motion has passed. Thank you, Ryan. We shall move to item 5B, which is Transportation Improvement Program Amendments. Pamela Barr with Florida Department of Transportation is here to present this item.
Good morning. We have two amendments to go on to the board. We have one for Manatee, which is project 410148-2, which is Manatee 5307 operating assistance. This one is in the dollar amount of $1,500,000 of FTA funds and then a match from the local funds. Then the Sarasota County has project 440266-1. It is also section 5307 operating assistance. It's in the amount of $3,953,748. And with the matching local funds. And these are both for FY 2025.
Does anyone have any questions on that? Great, hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to recommend MPO board approval of the Transportation Improvement Program amendments. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Clark Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Nick Patel. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, the motion has passed. Thank you, Pam. Next is item 5C, Joint Transportation Regional Incentive Program Project Priority List. Ryan Brown with the MPO will present this item.
Maybe, as you know, we also bring back this trip list on an annual basis. We have now received updated information from full TPO. I think it's changed with the Charlotte from what you saw back in March. Polk has confirmed that their only project is the Fountain Nursery Road from Westlake Ruby Drive to US 27. As you know, we do have agreements with both counties related to the alternating nature of the project on this priority list. So as we wait and see what the allocations of trip funding are going to look like this year, we will submit these lists for consideration. I will remind everyone that there is only about $7 or $8 million available on an annual basis for trip funding, and I know this is used in some cases to, make sure this is on a regional list for consideration for alternate funds as well. So if there's no further comments, I know we've received feedback from you on your specific projects, at least from the two counties. So if there's any other projects that you'd like to be added or any amendments to the order, please let us know before we get to the board next week. But with that, I will take any questions or comments and move to recommend consideration to the MPO board.
I want to add, if you can phase your $14 million request into, like a $2 million phase, whatever the next phase is, and then push the rest out, that makes the possibility of getting any funds that are available much higher for your project, if you have the rest of the funds to go go forward with the next phase. If your next phase is a $14 million phase, then you're probably not gonna fund it with trip money, because there isn't enough. Anyway, so you're just, you know, it's on a list in case other funding sources become available, but just thought I'd throw that out there because we did see some really high numbers for the requested amount. And if those requested amounts can be lowered, even if, you know, they're either matched with local funds, there's a 50% match anyway on these projects. It makes your chance of actually getting anything higher.
Thank you. All right, I will now entertain a motion to recommend MPO board approval of the 2025 joint trip project priorities list. Do I have a motion? All right, moved by Anthony. Do I have a second? All right, seconded by Megan. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, indicate by saying nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you, Ryan. Next is presentation, starting with 6A, the FDOT report. First, under the FDOT report is 6AI, promoting traffic safety culture, and we have Keith Robbins with FDOT to present.
Morning, I'm the safety administrator for District 1 FDOT, and I'm going to talk to you today about something that's not projects, talking about people and behavior. We did a question on our website not long ago and only had it up for a few hours and asked just one question. What concerns you most while driving? 74% said other drivers. They didn't say anything about the road. They talked about us. Us as in everybody in this room and outside this building. Okay, so it's behavior. Traffic impacts society in a lot of ways. It's not just a congestion thing. If you look at the numbers up here, more than 38,000 people a year are killed in traffic crashes. More than 2 million people are injured in traffic crashes. Okay, and it's our crash rate in the US is twice that of other high-income countries. And it costs nearly $1 trillion in economic impact. That's real money, people. $1 trillion. Okay, and so what are we going to do about this? What should we ask ourselves when we look at behavior choices? All of these things up here are behavior choices, and I want to point out one in particular: disregard for laws. How many people see people driving through red lights on a routine basis? People that turning right on, even though the sign says no turn on right or no right turn on red, but yet they're sitting there, oh, there's nobody here, it doesn't pertain to me, so I'm going to turn anyway. They stop ahead of the crossbar. They speed. They're all of these things. It's just utter disregard for laws. That is a behavior that we need to improve. So what defines behavior? Culture. Societal environments, family environments, the group that you associate with, your willingness and all this to do certain things. All of these things influence your behavior. And we have this thing that's going on in the US today. Since COVID, the numbers of crash fatalities and serious injuries has not come down. If anything, it's going up, because the behavior that people were using on the roadways during COVID, when nobody was on the roads, they were driving faster. But they're continuing that same kind of driving behavior today, even though everybody and their brother is back on the road. So what can we do to influence behavior? Traffic safety culture is what we're talking about. What is that? It's a shared belief system that influencing road user behavior and stakeholder actions can improve traffic safety. What we say and what we do can have a positive impact. So when we look at this, then it is a public health issue. Behaviors are influenced by our beliefs and by our actions. We develop beliefs in a lot of different ways, and we talk about how society influences that. So when we look at traffic safety culture, what strategies can we do? We need to look at these strategies that can influence our social environment to improve traffic safety. Now, what do? They recognize that it can be improved by growing beliefs to increase proactive and protective behaviors. Okay, partnerships are key in this, that we work together, that we're not working against each other when it comes to messaging or the types of projects or anything that we're doing there, that we're working together to achieve the same goal. When I talk about proactive, the safe system approach understands that people make mistakes. Okay, people are always going to make mistakes. And let's go one step further. It's not just mistakes. People are going to break the law. I talked about the actions that we observed just a few moments ago. I see it all the time, and it makes me furious when I see people do this. I hope it does to you too. It should. That is what we need in a traffic safety culture. And it's a never-ending cycle. It's always going to be changing because new people move here, conditions change, system changes, but we can always stay ahead of it. Now, what do? We create this shared understanding about traffic safety culture. And that comes from discussing questions of what can we do to motivate people to do better? What can we do to challenge their beliefs? And these are questions here that I encourage you to take back to your organizations and share them with your folks. Have this discussion, because if we talk amongst all of our agencies together and then we share that out to the community, that's the only way that you can make a difference. You saw on the slide before that societal influences and group behavior influences can matter. So, but we have to examine our own culture before we go out and try and change the culture of somebody else. We talk about safety all the time, but do we really prioritize safety? When we look at our projects and what types of projects are being prioritized, what types of improvements get taken out of a project when we need to start cutting funds. Okay, so think about that when you're going through your transportation planning process. But it doesn't always have to be money. Again, it's behavior. Our actions can speak louder than words. Getting leadership and getting all of us to practice proper roadway behavior and teaching our kids, getting it into the schools, getting it into businesses. The more you talk about this, the more it can have a positive impact. And finding opportunities to adopt traffic safety culture as an approach to traffic safety goals. Because I'm going to show you some slides in a moment that talk about the engineering aspect, but hopefully we can see an exponential growth in that if we influence the behavioral aspect. So what are we doing in District 1? We are in the process of preparing a safety strategic plan. And this doesn't have any projects in it whatsoever. It's really traffic safety culture focused. How can we get communities, get our own organization, but get communities and all of our partner agencies to talk about traffic safety culture and prioritize that in everything they do? And that goes across into what kind of projects you do, but what kind of programs you run in your agency from an education standpoint, or any other type of behavioral incentive program that you do. When I was in the Army, we had these signs that we put up, X number of days since the last DUI or whatever. And it was a matter of pride, the higher that number got. And then it was a black eye on the unit when it went back to 0 or anything like that. You don't ever see anything like that in organizations today. Are people embarrassed by it? They should be if they can't keep that number going. But what do you do to improve that? And it's not just an enforcement thing, it's a behavior thing. So that's what we're talking about. We're trying to do 1, 3, 5-year goals. We've had a series of public workshops. We've had internal workshops. We did one here in the Manatee region not long ago. We're in the process of writing on it now. And so once we get that draft out, it'll come out to the NPOs for review and all that later this summer. But we're really hoping to emphasize collaboration and partnership in this for people to be thinking about traffic safety culture. These are our objectives with some of our key strategies underneath. We talked about all of these in the workshops. And again, it's really to get everybody thinking about what can we do to change the behavior of those on our roadway. And it's not just motorists, it's bicyclists and pedestrians as well. So what are we doing about focusing on safety? This chart here, we've got one for Sarasota County too, shows you the numbers of fatal and serious injuries over the last few years. Then in 2024, we had a reduction in fatalities, but an increase in serious injuries here in Manatee County. In Sarasota, same thing. So for our work program, our safety funds, we have 71 projects right now across all 12 counties in the district that are working on these types of improvements. 13 of those are in Manatee, 9 are here in Sarasota County. So all of those are really just safety specific projects. This doesn't count money that's on other bigger projects that may have certain safety improvements incorporated into it. But what is the result of all this? What are we trying to get to? We're seeing a reduction of 112 fewer serious injury and fatal crashes across our district as a result of what the improvements and the investments that we're putting on our top 20 corridors for fatal and serious injuries. So that represents a potential 112 lives saved across our district in 1 year. So we want to improve that. You saw that we're still hitting over 600 or near 600 fatalities in the district. That's a lot of people. We need to get going a little bit quicker on reducing the number of fatalities. And the only way we can do that is to improve behavior. We can have the safest engineering, safest road on the planet, but it doesn't mean anything if the drivers that are on that road are just blatantly disregarding the laws and proper roadway behavior. One of the other things that we did here recently in the region, we had our second annual Operation Spring Into Safety. We partnered with the Sheriff's Office and State College of Florida. We had it on their campus back in February. It was a great public outreach event. We had near 200 volunteers and over 1,200 participants came during that Saturday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. We had a lot of fun, a lot of neat stuff for people to see. And it was a way to open the eyes of the public to a lot of different things about not just roadway safety, but personal and community safety as well, since we had sheriff and law enforcement, fire departments, military, a whole bunch of people there. Really great event. And we're going to do this on an annual basis now at State College of Florida. So we look for your participation going forward. Went through it real quick, but you have the slides. So please, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, Edie or John as well.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions right now?
How many people, raise your hand, how many people have seen somebody do something stupid on the roadways today? Everybody raise your hand, okay? It's funny, but it's serious. It's funny, but it's serious. I sat on one day on the interstate with the off ramps where it says no right on red. I kid you not, on one day at 2 different interchanges, 8 people that blew through the no right on red. And I'm not talking about they just went on through. They stopped, they sat there, and they made a conscious decision to turn right. And when one person does it, then what happens? The next person and the next person and the next person. We saw a video down in Lee County of people that, again, there is no left turn, where it's a right turn only, because we closed off the medians. We put delineators in place to close off the medians. I kid you not, multiple drivers turning left, going up against the traffic to then turn right to go through there, rather than just turning right and go down and making a U-turn that's what, like a 4.5 mile down the road, if that. And somebody was filming it and they turned it into the news. So good on her. That's proper behavior. Telling people, calling them out. This is the kind of behavior that will kill people. This is the kind of behavior that is killing people. So that's what we need to influence. And that's what we need to stop. So we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Next is 6AII, Local Government Training for Advanced Air Mobility. And we have Michelle Toronto with FDOT to present.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Toronto. I'm the District Transit Administrator. You might be wondering why I'm about to talk to you about something that happens in the air. Advanced air mobility is our most recent coming of age kind of item that the department is addressing. AAM is its acronym, so you'll hear me use that. And for the most part, its aircraft are electric vertical takeoff and landing. Clunky. The acronym is even clunkier. It's eVTOL. So we're going to talk about AAM and eVTOL today. So why are we interested, right? And what is the difference between, isn't that thing that flies in the air that takes off like a helicopter kind of the same thing as a drone? No, it's not. Here are some major differences, but the biggest ones are the fact that drones are a little bit smaller, or a lot smaller in most cases. They're unmanned, they're controlled by a remote control. eVTOLs have a pilot in them, they have to be licensed, there's all kinds of rules about that coming down through the FAA. And they travel a lot higher, so there's going to be a need for a lot of technology to go into how they can travel in the airspace without getting in the way of our airplanes. The infrastructure of it is gonna probably look like at an airport, but it doesn't have to be at an airport. It can be on top of a building. It can be in a parking lot if it's large enough. The primary thing here is, does it have the right infrastructure? So that's what a lot of our airports are looking at today. Some other private industry is looking at what will it take to have the proper infrastructure to power our eVTOLs in order to get them to take off and land appropriately, get you to where you want to go. Why are we very interested? Nationally, Florida is recognized as the leader in AAM. So that's kind of a big deal, right? And the Florida Department of Transportation is also recognized as the leader. So we are taking that role and making sure that our state comes out ahead of our AAM quest and ensure that we are probably one of the first states that will have an active AAM role with the Federal Airport or Aviation Administration. This is what our airports kind of look like. And that's why nationally we're recognized, because we have a lot of points that can get you to and from, and they're not very long, right? So we have a good natural setup for AAM to be flying throughout our state. So the next piece is, where are we in all of this? Our implementation plan, we're there in phase 2. So, and that's why I'm here today to talk to you about this. Again, I'm the transit administrator. I don't have a lot to do with aviation, except that's going to come up in a little bit in my next presentation. We're here to talk about public awareness and getting the community engaged and just having everyone understand, what does this mean for your community? And we have a workshop coming up. Here's a little chart that tells you the local government and our role of advanced air mobility has the biggest part in what you will see in your communities and how this will look to you. And so while Florida is nationally recognized, the Department of Transportation is kind of taking this lead role to engage you, not to operate it. It's for you all to make proper decisions in accordance with what will happen in your community. So what the department has done is we've developed a guidebook, and we have a training coming up. That's why I'm here, to tell you about the training or the workshop that's coming up. There's a QR code there. If you get an agenda packet, I need you to click on that QR code, or you could take out your phone right now if you wanted to, that's active. Click on that. It's going to give you all the information you need about the upcoming workshop. It's an all-day workshop. The first half of that workshop is for you all, the planning community. And we're going to talk about everything that it will take in order for you all to have your proper plans in place in order to be able to have advanced air mobility, perhaps in your area. The second half of the day is more for our elected and appointed officials, so that they too can be informed and start making good decisions about what they want in their communities. There's another QR code at the top right. It's also active. It's also in your presentation if you pick up one of those packages. So here we are. These are our local ones. They are throughout the state, so it's a little easier to get somewhere else. then do that. These are coming up. You see that on July 8th and July 10th, Bartow and Fort Myers. So that's all I have about advanced air mobility. I always end on the safety side. This is my favorite one because it hits me a little personally, but it's also a good reminder for everybody here. Thank you, Keith, for trying to change the behavior of drivers. I love that. I want you all to change your behavior. Anytime you see a vehicle on the side of the road, scoot over. Let yourself be the leader here and get out of the way of that person and give them some safe space to be on the side of the road, doing whatever they need to be doing. That's entirely more important than you getting to where you need to be. Tell me what questions that you have about advanced air mobility.
I got one.
Yes,
So how many of these are around? Are they out?
are they out?
Yeah, eVTOLs.
They're out.
Yeah.
I can't answer the question of how many are around.
I've never seen them.
That's correct.
Training yourself. There's 12, what's the training? There's 12 that are in development phase, 12 different companies. So, yeah.
How much is the training? Is that what you said?
I went to the training.
Oh.
I said 12 different companies are being validated currently.
Is one of them including that flying car, the red picture that we've
They're
seen
all-
for 20 years that had
Maybe,
the
I don't know, they're
four?
all look different.
You know what I'm talking about, right? It's that red car, it's got four, blades on it. We've seen it for 20 years. That's gonna be the flying car.
Maybe, yeah.
So Ryan, you attended the training?
Yeah,
It was good?
yes, I went in Tampa because I had conflicts in day one, but yeah, it was informative.
Yeah.
A lot of focus on local government. I know like the comp plan amendments and things, I know you need pretty substantial clearance for some of these sites. I was kind of shocked to see that you needed 4,000 feet in each direction to be able to land. They don't really, might say vertical takeoff and landing, but they do need quite a lead and runway on each side
Right.
for those vertiports. So getting comp plan amendments done and getting those in place is gonna be critical, actually deploying statewide. So.
Thank you for that
Yeah.
tidbit of information. It's a lot to know, it's a lot to understand. But the Florida Department of Transportation is dedicated to making this happen in our state first over all the other states. Yes, Dave?
Our airport SRQ has, updated their master plan, and they do have a section on this type of technology, this type of service. So, obviously with 4,000 foot of runway needed, most implementations are gonna be at existing air facilities. But not necessarily, they're looking to add, but for the most part, it's gonna be the airports that do this. If you have an airport in your jurisdiction, I would definitely take a look at the use language, and we will incorporate, some generic language in our LRTP updates so that if an opportunity arises to get some funding to help advance some of this, and your jurisdiction wants to go for it, we'll be on board and ready to go.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, Matt?
Also, two questions, is this a transit driven thing, or is it gonna be up to local municipalities to take the lead in doing that? And secondly, the other question is the training session gonna be sent out to all the elected officials through the NPO side?
It already has been for the first one, and I believe there's one coming up again in July, is that correct? So,
Right, so Dave and I coordinated on that and he has sent it out to.
okay, it already went out to you all and to the board members at least, so. And actually, I think FDOT also sent it directly to elected officials from around the state.
Yeah, we're trying really hard to get the messaging out, so, because I have this relationship with the NPO, I was like, hey, can you do this and send it out? And then that spurred, can you just come to the NPO meeting, but first be at the CAC meeting, so that's why I'm here.
But what about the transit?
Oh, yes, your first question, is it transit?
Is it more like a transit authority that's gonna take the lead on this, or is it gonna be local
I'm
municipalities?
assuming you're asking that because I'm a transit administrator giving this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your spoiler alert is that it's coming in the next presentation as to why they chose me. But no, not transit related. I mean, other than the fact that they'll probably be at the airport and we have a nice ground transportation there, delivering transit service. Yeah, how many Ryans do I have in the room? Yes, Mr. Suarez, how can I help you?
Thank you, Michelle. What's the anticipated range for some of these?
In terms of it's
Like,
how long it can be in the air?
or distance, yeah, either or.
It's a great question for the training, but I bet Ryan might know that. Yeah, Ryan.
100
miles. 100 miles.
100 miles so far, depends on the takeoff, that's why they need a lot of, apparently if you take off directly vertically, it uses like 20% of battery on takeoff, and then it reduces range. So battery technology is also highly dependent on future deployment. But yeah, you're shooting like, you know, here to Tampa, kind of connection.
This technology is really kind of related to a bunch of other technologies that are developing. The Jacksonville, Florida area, TPO has been working on with, you know, a project from the private sector to deliver defibrillators to locations that are detected during a 911 call. And if AI determines that they should send a defibrillator somewhere, they start doing so even before the call is done. Or at least that's coming. And, you know, they're also looking at potential active shooter solutions involving drones, where a drone would respond and help help with the response under you know, local law enforcement directions. And if you trust AI, you know, that might be good. I mean, it probably is coming, or it is coming, no probably about it. And I was asked, would I serve as the, in the demo of this, would I want to serve as the active shooter? And I said, you know, when the AI can keep all the spam out of my email, then I would volunteer to do that role. At any rate, there's a lot of stuff that ties together, and I think if you stay up on the advanced air stuff, then you're gonna learn about a lot of other potential solutions that, you know, might not involve your local NPO, but they will involve you all at some point.
Thanks, Dave. And I have two things to take back to your leadership. Change the behavior, that's what Keith's message was on your roadways, and get your folks to this 8 a.m. training that's coming up. Again, those QR codes are live, so please help yourself, click the buttons and go to the training. You always can call me if you have questions, and I will put you in contact with the right person in terms of what your question might be and who might have the right answer.
Thank you. So next, I believe, we have Michelle again with 6A III, congestion management, multimodal planning.
Excellent, go right ahead. All right, thank you. So this is going to answer your question, Nick, about why they chose the transit administrator to deliver some information about AAM. About 6 years ago, we began an initiative under the direction of our district secretary, LK Nandum, and we titled it Congestion Management Multimodal Planning Initiative. And we came up with that acronym, C3MP. After 6 years, I still have a hard time remembering it. The MP has nothing to do with my first and last name. It has everything to do with the 3 M's that are in our title and then the P. So that's where we get the C3MP. Again, this is LK's idea about how do we change our transportation network? How will that look? What will we need to do? And he thought that probably the easiest thing to do is to start to change how we look at transit and how it's delivered, which is why he chose the transit administrator to bring forward this initiative. So like with any good initiative, we came up with a vision, a mission, some goals, a process, and a strategic plan. That is our final vision and mission, the bolded words of various modes of transportation that has changed over the course of the last 6 years. It started with just being hyper-focused on public transportation and how can we change the world of public transportation in terms of making our roadway network better for our communities. And then the same holds true for our mission in terms of improving the safety and efficiency of our roadway network. It used to read just public transportation. Today it reads a multimodal solution. When we use the word multimodal, we include transit, aviation. That goes back to the why I just did that presentation, right? Bike ped, safety, and seaports and freight. Look on this one, rail. That's it, rail. So those are our modes, right? How do we change all of that to make our roadway network a little bit better? So in this room, Ryan Brown talked about it earlier. Thank God I know these people's last name. Everybody's goal is to be right here on the adopted work program. And how do you get there? That's a pretty big chart with a lot of lines. And you get there by ensuring that what you want in your community is in your planning document. So where do you reside in the transportation industry? If you're a transit agency, or you're a seaport, or you're an airport, you're in that far right triangle, the orange colored one. That's your modal plan. And when you are an airport or a transit agency, you need to make sure that you're working with your local MPO. So make sure you're contacting Dave and Ryan and the staff here so that they understand what your community needs are. It's a big process. It's a long process. From the day you think about what you might want in order to change your transportation network to seeing it through full construction is about 20 years. So when you think about your community, it needs to be a long-term think forward type of aspect. It cannot be something that will be fixed today. That means that your comp plans have to change, city and county comp plans, they all have to be talking to each other. This was our biggest initiative when we began C3MP, was to ensure that everybody's plans were funneling up correctly and that everybody was on the same page about getting the things done in order to make that transportation network a more robust one. So in those first several years, the team met with LK about every 2 weeks, and about every 2 weeks we had one or more, usually more than one assignment. However, he's been very good about being supportive and making sure that we have all the tools that we need in order to make this initiative happen. One of his most compelling statements very early on was to make sure that as a team, I should have said this earlier, I'm sorry, my team is made up of myself, Peyton McLeod, who's here with me today from PGA, and my other colleague, Rohan Sadhai, who's with Asha Consulting. So he instructed us to, when we're thinking about solutions, make sure we're thinking outside the box and without financial limitations. So as a veteran to the DOT for more than 20 years, he just told me to work outside of a budget. I was like, hold on, that's a lot. Like, I've never had to do that. I've never done it. They give me a price tag and I stay within that dollar amount. But being able to be a free thinker like that and to think of a solution where it doesn't matter how much it might cost was so helpful in this process, because it began the peeling away of the layers, right? I can't have this big thing that I really want, but what can I have? And we've been able to get to many different solutions that we would not have been able to get to had we not started with what is the best thing we can possibly do. Our goals are multifaceted. So the last one there is about technology. So that kind of goes in with the AAM piece of it, and integrating modal into everything that we do. The most important, as it turns out, we didn't know this. We labeled it number one. We just didn't know it would come out to be the first and foremost and most compelling thing that we've done is develop relationships. So I had already had some relationships with our MPOs because I've been doing this a while. Had relationships with our transit authorities because I've been doing that for a while. So I started bringing those folks together, or we started bringing those folks together. And in the end, we realized that it is without those relationships, we cannot and would not have been able to have successes in this program. So we developed quarterly meetings with our transit partners, with our MPO, with the department. We developed those same quarterly meetings with our airports and MPOs and the department. And every time I call somebody like Dave and say, hey, how about another meeting with the DOT? Does that sound great? And he said, yes, Michelle, it does actually sound great. And so all the MPOs and our modal partners have been so welcoming, and they love this piece of transportation because it's a little bit different than what they're used to. So our processes are listed here. You can read through them. I'm just going to talk about a few of them. I already said one of them. That's number 3 about those quarterly meetings. The other one, because this initiative was so important to our district secretary, he made a point when we first rolled it out 6 years ago to come in person to our transit administrators or transit directors, and then later came to our airport directors to have that one-on-one conversation so that they would have a full understanding of what LK is asking his staff to do. And they never blinked an eye. They're like, this is great. Let's have an open conversation about what more can we do. And in some cases across our district, it's the first time the airports have been able to have a chance to really understand that with all the growth that they're seeing, that it really is impacting the roadway network in their community, and what can they do to help that? Instead of just thinking about what can they do to make their airport proper, better. Some of our successes, Nick is gonna know this one so well. It was probably came out of his office first, if I remember correctly. It's State Road 7089, it's our Ringling Bridge. There was a conversation between the city of Sarasota, Sarasota County, and our own department executive leadership team. It was during the Gulfstream Roundabout project, and the local governments were asking the department to do something about all the congestion that it will be creating. And we were delivered a typical section that included a dedicated bus lane, and we thought, oh, I don't know if that will work, but we'll try. So we started with just putting a bus in the area, so you all might be familiar with that bus. It starts in downtown Sarasota, goes up and over the bridge, gets you down to St. Armands and Lido Beach. That has been a huge success. The people love it, the community love it, the visitors love it. But while we were doing that, figuring out that route, we also discovered, not through me because I'm not an engineer, but the engineers in the room discovered that it looks like there's probably enough space on that bridge to have the bus in its own lane, but how do we get there? So we started developing that process, and we, in short form, came up with a shared bus bike lane. So that was first. It was in place for about 8 or 9 months, where the bus and the bike rode together in the shoulder up and over the bridge. It was well received. We made a few errors, like putting up signs that the buses hit. So we took the signs down. But then also we found out that there were several other projects happening in that area. And because of the culmination of all those projects coming together, today we've been able to have a typical section that from right about the roundabout area, you don't see it yet on the road, it's coming, all the way up and over the Ringling Bridge and up and over Little Ringling Bridge. There will be space enough for a dedicated bike lane, a dedicated bus lane, and 2 travel lanes. None of that would have been possible had I not had that first initial discussion with LK about think about the best solution you could possibly have that may or may not work, that doesn't have any kind of money tied to it. If you could do it and it was free, what would you do? So all of that maybe cost about $50,000. And that $50,000 was only because of the interim shared bus bike lane that we created in the very beginning. So those quarterly meetings that we talked about, it's kind of like the safe space, and I know Megan is in those meetings, probably a couple others in the room, but I'm not seeing them right now. Well, Dave and Ryan, of course. It's probably the first time, at least in my tenure, where you have this joining of different companies or organizations. So we have the MPO, the department, and the transit agencies. And in our case, because we have Sarasota Manatee, we have both Sarasota County Area Transit, today known as Breeze Transit, and we also have Manatee County Area Transit, the MPO, and us. And we just kind of openly have conversations about what's happening in your area, what do you want to see happening in those conversations. Breeze brought up the fact that there's a airport project going on. Do you all know anything about it? It has to do with ground transportation. We're like, well, no, but we bet our aviation folks know all about it. So we ran around the corner, talked to them, and they said yes. And we're like, well, they're not really doing the right thing for transit. Can we work on that? And so our aviation project manager was able to get in touch with the airport's consultant and the airport. They did a couple change orders. They better coordinated with both of our transit agencies, make that ground transportation area at the airport better than what it would have been and more accommodating to the transit users. Again, without having those meetings, we just would have never known. And kind of people would have just sat silently, right? I always say, don't suffer silently. I don't. I tell people how I feel. So our next thing is the transit safety study pilot project. This is going to go right in line with what Keith presented just a few minutes ago. You've heard him talk about our top 20 list. That list, I call it our own colleague, John Kubicki, who's in the room with us today. That's his list. I call it John's top 20. I don't know how official that is, but that's what I say. So John came to me and he said, I hear y'all doing some cool stuff with the C3MP. I don't know what that means, but I think I can help. And I said, oh yeah, well, how? And he said, well, I have this top 20, but I'd like to do the same kind of thing related to transit stops. And so we have John's top 20 report that tells us where the serious injuries are happening or fatalities are happening. We overlay that with bike ped movement at transit stops. And then we're really able to hone in on which stops, which areas need the most safety impact to them. So it's because we've been out talking about what C3MP is doing. John was, he's a thinker, so he's like, I think I can help this. And so we did that first. We did the pilot study right here in Manatee County, and now we're doing 4 other counties in our district. And so we're looking forward to those reports in hopes of getting some safety improvements. Our Polk County Sunrail expansion project. So Polk County is where I'm from. I live in Lakeland. I work in Bartow. We've talked about Sunrail a lot. And for the last, I don't know, probably 15 years, the Polk TPO has had some kind of information in their documents, in their LRTP about Sunrail. Sunrail is that really cool train that runs up and around Orlando area. We want it to come down into Polk County. So we're working on that. We did a TCAR study, which is like a feasibility study. And now we're doing our PD&E study to see where does that land? How do we get commuter rail into Polk County? And then our last 2, the State Road 33 construction microtransit project, that was State Road 33 is in Polk County. It's in Lakeland. And our transit agency there, Citrus Connection, found out that the department was going to have 2 major projects happening at the same time, major corridors within half a mile of each other. And then a 3rd project that was smaller, but still going to have impacts. And because we had been talking about C3MP, again, our goal is a better transportation network, right? How do we get there? Our goal was to go around and talk to folks like you all, but also our internal people like John, who knew about us and came to us. And so did the project manager of that State Road 33 project and said, I think there's a problem. We need to talk to the transit agency. And so we did. The transit agency was able to come up with this really great concept. State Road 33 is our major medical corridor in Lakeland. So what they've done is kind of taken away some of the stops along that corridor and created microtransit right around it so that people can come off-site outside of that corridor, but still get to their medical appointments, right? They're bringing them right to it. Again, that's something that would not have happened had it not been for thinking outside the box. What more can we do? What can we do differently? Our last one is advanced air mobility. Nick, finally, here you are. It's your answer. LK asked our C3MP team to take the lead for our district in terms of learning about advanced air mobility, understanding it, beginning conversations with our airports, and we have been having those conversations. Central office, that's our folks in Tallahassee. They are the ones that are really leading the effort with that workshop that I want everyone to go to and tell your people to go to it. So that's why the transit administrator is talking to you about AAM, because it's the transit administrator who is leading our congestion management multimodal planning initiative. There you have it. I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. I'm not going to tell you to move over again, but just move over again. Tell me what questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is the MPO report, starting with 6BI Ed Smith Stadium Planning Study. And we have Ryan Suarez, AICP with Kimley Horn and Associates to present on this item.
Thanks. We've got Ryan Suarez here with us today from Kimley Horn. He's going to give us a brief update, our progress thus far on the Ed Smith study. We've been working closely with city staff, transit agencies, county staff to kind of develop some early on preliminary recommendations for you all. And today, Ryan will give us a brief update of where we are at this point.
All right, thank you, Other Ryan. Good morning, everyone. Ryan Suarez here with Kim Farm. Two things today. Ryan did briefly mention them. Status on what we've done since we last met, which was in March. And also talk about that preliminary set of projects. So, project schedule. Recall, we organized the project into 3 major phases as shown here. Phase 1, identifying deficiencies. Phase 2, getting to that draft set of solutions and recommendations. In phase 3, getting into the implementation piece. We're somewhere at the end of that green bar under phase 1, starting to get into our draft solutions and recommendations. This is important because we've got ongoing activities with the LRTP, specifically the preparation of that cost feasible plan. So we just want to make sure that we're in line with what's happening there as well. So status since we last met, we have performed a number of activities as part of the project that involve folks who are actually in this room as well, in addition to others. There's some other things that are in the works as well, or that have been performed. I just wanted to hit some highlights that I thought would be most interesting to the group here. They're listed here, the game day observations, spring training, preseason was in March. We're on the bike audit. I'll talk a little bit about the traffic analysis piece. And then the interactive map was important. I got a slide for each. In terms of the game day observations, now there's a lot that happened while we were out there. We did go to 2 different ball games, and we did try to vary the games that we picked by time, by day of the week, and also went to games that we thought were going to have high attendance. So there was a Rays game on a Saturday in the afternoon, and there was a Yankees game on a weekday, Thursday afternoon, later in the day. So I believe the Yankees game was sold out. Rays game, I think the attendance that was announced was about 6,800. I believe that stadium capacity about 7,200, just about. So, importantly, what you see here, again, there was a lot of observations. I think last time we met, I just kind of gave an overview because we were fresh off that game on the 8th. What's shown here in red are really the traffic cues, the auto cues that we saw in the red were on the way into the game, so before the game. And in the yellow, which is the 1 arrow, on the way in. I don't know how many of you actually go to the spring training games. There's a lot of folks that come, they're well attended. There are 3 parking areas that the Orioles use, they're shown here. The east lot, the north lot, which is the largest, and then across the street at the youth athletic complex. You'll see the traffic queues on Tuttle really extended way south, all the way to the elementary school and further south. I was actually on Tuttle viewing the activity was going on there. Once they closed the east lot, this is when the traffic really built up here along Tuttle and then up on 12th Street as well, heading over, because that's where folks were being redirected to get to the north park. On the way out, the way baseball works, folks start to trickle out around the 6th, 7th inning. We didn't really experience or see that type of queue in terms of the traffic. Really, the north lot, what the Orioles do is direct folks, so they attempt to direct as many folks north on Strickfield Road to 17th, and that's where traffic disperses. Our observation is that folks are going northbound to catch the highway, they're taking Tuttle, Lockwood Ridge, going all the way out to Geneva to get to Food Hill and Highway. So all in all, not a terrible set of traffic circumstances. Really, the traffic that we're illustrating here, probably 45 to 60 minutes before the game. Parking, in terms of parking, really, the Orioles really do a good job of getting people in and out. And payment does occur on site as well, and really move people through that payment cycle very quickly. So there did seem to be enough parking for those 2 game days. The north lot only filled up on the Yankees game, which was that Thursday afternoon game, but there was still plenty of parking over at the youth athletic complex. Any questions about that? We did take a bike audit. Several folks, raise your hand if you joined us. This was an eye-opening event. For me, I'm not, just thinking Grace in the back. I'm not an avid bike rider. I have my beach cruiser that I take on the sidewalk. But it is a whole different world. We do a lot of, prepare a lot of plans, and we have these plan views and we look at space where we can add sidewalk, bike lanes, et cetera. But it is a whole different experience when you're on the ground, seeing this really in first person. In the biking world, we talk about stress levels. Is this a stressful roadway? Is this a high stress roadway? And again, being out there on the road, actually in proximity to truck traffic right next to you, really got a firm understanding what that means in terms of, what's high stress and low stress. And it does vary if you're an experienced bike rider. You're probably going to be more used to certain types of activity and feel more comfortable. It was a 9-mile ride, just about. Some of the areas that we covered did extend outside our study area. You had to drive to Bobby Jones and then back up to 17th. But there was a mixed bag of neighborhood and also high traffic, high volume roadways that we covered. Lime and East Avenue, which are 2 north-south roads in the study area. Those are neighborhood streets, where the east is a neighborhood road. Low stress levels. Fruitville and 17th by far were the highest stress roadways, particularly for myself. On 17th, there's a lot of debris on the roadway. There's a lot of truck traffic, trailers. You do have to kind of weave around some of the debris in that bike lane. So even though there's striping, it's tough. It's tough on a cyclist. There's one location shown here. Right here, this keyhole section, and even though there's space for cyclists to travel through the intersection, you're stuck between traffic. There's I think the best term I could come up to describe this was just this sense of just exposure, just exposed to the elements you're unprotected, which create a high level of stress. Again, this was eye-opening. This was important. We're thinking about multimodal facilities. This helps us see what's on the ground and work with staff to see what kind of fixes or improvements we can make along some of these roadways. Traffic analysis. So there was I'm gonna say it's a robust traffic analysis, and what this really comes down to is an intersection capacity analysis. We did go out there and do traffic counts for about 15 different intersections. And that is for your information, for any folks who are interested in having that data, we have that available. We had our traffic folks plug those counts into Synchro and determine a level of service analysis by intersection, and not just by intersection, by all those different turning movements that happen at those different intersections that we covered. There's a big table. There's a big table that's going to be published in the report. It looks something like this. A lot of info, again, for the different turning movements. I'm just hitting a couple of highlights that are associated with game day activity. Because we did cover 2 counts of 3 different occasions in the AM peak, the PM peak, and during a baseball event day, to understand the LOS for each one of those intersections, and also the LOS for each one of those movements, turning movements. So what you see here, by and large, most of these intersections are operating at an adequate level of service D or above. There were a few locations, like I said, which are related to event, and then we also noted when during the other periods they fell below that D LOS level. Tuttle and 12th in the eastbound and westbound direction. You'll see a level of service E. I think in terms of the 15 intersections that we covered, it was Fruitville and Tuttle that we saw the biggest capacity issues. So going north and south on Fruitville, this really was failing during the game days, and also, as you can see, during the AM and the PM peak periods. Again, there's a lot of information here. I'm just hitting some highlights. If anybody does want to talk about this in a little detail, we can do that afterwards. So that was a little bit of the status. So we have gone in, brainstormed, identified a preliminary list of projects and locations. Now, what we've done is roll this up into the corridors that you see to the right. And really the purpose of this is, again, knowing that there's activity going on with development of the LRTP cost feasible, we want to make sure that we stay consistent. We've color coded these based on the categories that you see over to the, I say to the right, your right, in terms of plan consistency. So what's in orange are really what's considered pipeline projects. These corridors have had some kind of funding attributed to them. Some other phase has been previously funded. In the blue, we have what we're calling priority projects. So these have been submitted into the LRTP process for consideration and inclusion into the cost feasible plan. And then the remaining corridors will see in the pink. And these are our projects in our list that are going to be new and then come from our Ed Smith project. Now, there is a lot of homework that's still left to do on our end to delve into and bear out some details for each one of these. We know that funding availability in this cost feasible plan is a little bit different from previous efforts. Our effort here is still to break these down into smaller chunks, perhaps phase them, perhaps, again, identify some little bites so that we can actually get into some actionable projects somewhere down the line. Now, I'm going to say this is about 80 to 90% done. There's still some analysis that we need to allow. I still feel like we need to go out there and collect some more traffic counts on certain intersections. There's some stakeholders we still need to communicate with to ensure some consistency in terms of our projects, some outreach, and there's some operational improvements on the transit side that we want to conduct some additional analysis on so that it's not just infrastructure. Maybe we can get to some operation level improvements that add to our list. Okay. The illustration of the map graphic just shows where projects are at. And some of these will familiarly see shade, just as what was illustrated here in the table, shade 12th in the orange. In that blue, we've got Tuttle, the rest really lie in the pink. The circles are also color coded to align with, again, pipeline projects, cost feasible, projects being considered for the cost feasible plan, and then our new Ed Smith corridors. Any questions on this? We'll do it pretty quickly. But like I said, there's still a lot of detail we got to bear out on these projects. So again, presenting this to you at this stage, understanding that we're going to come back with some more specificity. The interactive map is open and available. There's a QR code. Haven't gotten a whole lot of comment yet. 50 may sound good, but I'd like to get that number up a lot more. So please share it with your constituents, with anyone that you think might be interested. We do have some public outreach that we're working on with staff later on this spring and into the summer. So we're going to leave this open as long as we need to in order to get as much feedback as we can. Thanks for having me. Any questions on this?
Thank you.
Next, we have 6BII, Barrier Islands Implementation Plan, and Nathan Couts with Kittleson and Associates is here to present.
Good morning, everyone. So we have Nathan Couts with Kittleson and Associates to provide you all with an update on the study since it was last presented to all in January. And we are in the process of finalizing our memos, which were attached in your agenda packet for your review and feedback. And Nathan's going to speak a little bit about the toolkit and next steps.
Great. So we went to a stakeholder meeting, got some feedback on some of the operational analysis. We're starting to throw the information into the toolkit. So the way we're breaking it down, we're including kind of a description of what's going on, what the big picture proposal, like in this case, microtransit or free transit. And then assigning as well as we can the impact costs and a timeline. And we're also trying to assign the source. Some of this analysis, a lot of this stuff, aside from the operational, is not stuff that's coming from our analysis, it's coming from the literature review. So one of the things we want to make sure is if we're performing that literature review, we're looking at the existing studies, we want to try to make sure that we combine it into something that's useful, and then we can also refer you back to the original study that's looking at it and assigning some measure of value to it. So we've broken up into 4 sections: the transit mobility, policy, resiliency, and then the operations and roadway, which is really the meat and potatoes of the analysis. With that, looking at location and what the recommendation is, assigning an impact to it as well as we can. Some of the recommendations we can't get to, for instance, the proposed alternative routes from East Bay to Marina, that's getting into some micro simulation and modeling. One of the recommendations from that, while we will look at the overall cost, the recommendation is actually going to be a further analysis, getting into actually making sure what the benefits will in a larger micro simulation study. Something like that obviously would be a very hard sell, and it's something you want to do with a lot of work with the communities before you try to prioritize a project. So we want to make sure that we appropriately identify the next steps and assigning a cost to it. What is not here that is being worked on currently is looking at a ranking methodology. And mostly we're going to be looking at a benefit cost analysis, looking at what that congestion relief benefit is compared to the cost. We'll also be paying attention to timelines. For instance, there is at 64 in East Bay, there's a couple recommendations looking into some of that, like modifying lane configurations. With a future roundabout currently in design, that's going to be considered when we look at those. Where it may be a beneficial BC in a normal situation without the roundabout, we want to keep that in mind of like, do we want to spend the money now when in a few years we can potentially be looking at a much better scenario? As we work through these toolkits and come up with the final one, we're going to be looking probably in June and July, looking at getting out to the communities. Right now, tentatively, we're looking at a farmers market, I believe, in Coquina, as well as a beach walk, making sure we have a booth, we have a place to discuss what's going on, and then also a way to collect feedback from the community on what they're looking for and what they think would be valuable to this. And then eventually updating our Bear Island dashboard and coming up with the final report and final toolkits. Any questions on this?
The interactive site that's mentioned here, is that showing the toolkits or toolkits on there?
It is not. Right now on the dashboard, the only thing that's up there currently is the congestion information. So we're waiting to get a little more of a final product, and we'll talk with Barshini and Ryan about how we want to present the recommendations. Okay. And what language, because I think we want to encourage, like, this is the information for prioritization, but it's not necessarily dictating this is the prioritization of projects. Cool. It looks thoughtful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next is 6B III 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. And we have Lena with the MPO who will present.
So this is just a quick FYI item. I'm happy to open it up to discussions and questions. First of all, thank you to all of you who attended the workshop on April 28th and offered your presentations. I hope it was useful for you to hear what your regional partners are doing and thinking. And also I know it's people in the room who are not engaged in the process every day to know what sort of the long-term thinking is on a regional scale for your projects and planning. So at the April 28th workshop, we sort of presented the initial cost feasible projects or projects that are being considered for the cost feasible plan. So this is by no means a final draft. We are looking for as much feedback right now to be able to present to you a draft cost feasible plan within the next month. So what was included in your cover sheets and what I emailed out, maybe 2 weeks ago, is an interactive map to, the projects and the project tables. So you can access the interactive map. That's probably the best way to take a look at the projects. There's also a zip file where you can download the maps and the project tables themselves. If that's a better way for you to take a look at them. There's 7 categories of projects. The first is the pipeline projects. These are projects that we have identified as having had a phase already underway or that we know you want to get started as soon as possible. And then the rest are what we are calling program projects. Previously known as box funds projects. These will be our program projects. The projects in the programs have been ranked. And so they are categorized one from highest ranking to least ranking. But again, this is a draft. So what we are looking for now and within the next 2 weeks is to send an email to staff with the projects that you do and do not want to see on the pipeline and projects that are the most important to you in the programs. So we will not be able to fund all of the projects in the programs. And based on the feedback that we get back from you on the pipeline, we'll be able to determine how many projects can go into the programs. And so that information will come to you within the month when we have a draft cost feasible plan. So we want to lock down those pipeline projects. And then we want to understand what are your top priorities in the program projects, so that we can identify a short list. And then with that, we'll develop a draft, and then probably open up a week or 2 where we can meet with you, and further finish the cost feasible in advance of the presentation, in September of the full plan. That's all I have. I know we've heard from a few jurisdictions. I know we have a couple of meetings lined up, and as much feedback as possible, because this is really total line here. So we need to hear from you. So any questions, Megan?
Thank you very much. The last item on our agenda is once around the table, and we'll go around the table for member comments. I will start. All I have is that I want to introduce one of our new planners in the city of Bradenton, Corey Holycross, who came to see what these meetings are all about today. So, welcome, Corey.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Well, introductions, Saji with Holmes Beach. I'm gonna embarrass Erin. She's our engineering intern this summer, so part of education is seeing how the sausage is made. So want everybody to just say hi to her. She's studying industrial engineering, so we'll see if we can get her more on the transportation side.
Nothing for Palmetto?
Nothing for member Q.
Sarasota County is gonna be processing a comp plan amendment, public initiated one in regards to Keyway that has implications for the city of Northport. So we'll like to get with you on your thoughts on that, because that was a surprise to staff. Came about in regards to a unsolicited proposal to build Minnesota Beach Road from a private developer and his economic stimulus group, with the caveat that it comes with the removal of Keyway from the thoroughfare plan. Yeah, so we'll need to have conversations about that and how that impacts Northport and our overall transportation network.
We've just been looking at some of the big projects that FDIC is currently working on. I was talking with Dave this week. We have a project at McIntosh that our consultants are working on. They will be presenting at our September MPO board meeting so that we'll get to hear from them. There is a public meeting actually July 8th. So you can go out to Southwest Florida roads and see more of the dates for that. We also have State Route 683, which is 301 US 41 to 10th Street. This is the PHB crossing with Legacy Trail. And it's being moving ahead and it's being done with the federal aid funds. We have 431350-7, which is 15th Street redesign. They are moving forward with the advertising as for the agency, so we are moving ahead with projects. In case you're wondering, what are they doing? We are moving ahead, just there is a lot of financial constraints right at this moment, so we have to limit what projects we do put in the pipelines.
Manatee County is working on updates of several of its impact fees, including roads, and I think hearings coming up later this month and in June, so you may know then whether or not impact fees are going to go up and how much. If there are increases, I think there's a 90-day cool off by state statute, so it'd be towards the end of the year before anything would go into effect, but we may get information soon enough that it could feed into the projects that are considered cost feasible using local funds in the LRTP update.
We just completed the Ringling Pine roundabout, so that's off the books. So, you know, it took 10 years or 10, 20 years to get to this level. So thank you for, you know, DOT and the MPO for funding that. So I appreciate that. And then I do also want to thank Keith specifically. There was a safety issue on 301 and they were being responsive and addressing. There was a pedestrian crash and all that aspects of it, and thank DOT for their response on addressing that. So that's pretty much it.
Just one thing, more of a question than a comment. Last week, we received an email through the MPO about the Safe Streets for All grant opportunity. I know Sarasota County was taking the lead on that. I was just wondering if we could get a status update and if that's something that's not accepting projects. I'm not sure if you could be submitting projects for those now.
Sure. Yeah, the project, it's still ongoing. We can get you an update as far, I don't have it right off the bat, but we can get something to all the municipalities as far as where we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yo, we have one from back.
Yeah, in case you haven't heard, word is out that this district secretary of FDOT, LK Nannon, is retiring at the end of June. Or not retired, well, he might be retiring, but he's going to the private sector. So he's leaving FDOT. So heads up on that. Hopefully he'll still be planning to attend our next meeting. We heard he wasn't. I talked to him and said, well, with this news, we hope you can be there because board members would like a chance to talk to him individually, probably. One other item that's on the agenda for next week, normally we have 2 weeks in between meetings, so this week we'll have to verbally report on your recommendations, is the implementation of the MPO Executive Director succession plan, and it's an option for the board. You know, my contract runs out at the end of the year. I'm planning to retire. I'm recommending that they consider Ryan as the incoming executive director without any reservations or hesitation. I think he'll do a great job. And so they may ask you in your briefings what your opinions are, and I hope you'll share a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Does anyone on the virtual line have any comments? Sounds like no. So on that, thank you everyone for attending. This meeting is adjourned and the next TAC meeting is Monday, September 8th at 10 a.m.
I know it's posted in the email for 7 days, but it's not.